Well, first, I just want to thank everybody for coming out on Sunday morning to see our picture and for showing up. And I want to thank all of our cast for coming out here today. Because I know everybody came from many different places where they're working and doing things with their families. Yeah, Sidney Pollack gave me the book 5 years ago. I tried for 5 years to make this movie. I thought I would make it before The Fighter, and it was meant to be the way it happened. It's personal to me because I've lived through some of these experiences with a son that I have, and that's him who rings the doorbell and that he chases in his pajamas.
Mr. De Niro, when I interviewed Mr. Russell in conjunction with The Fighter, even then he was saying how growing up your movies had meant so much to him and how much he admired you, and so I just wondered how you came to work together on this project.
Well, David and I met, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, I guess, at first, at a Starbucks, and just to get to know each other through a mutual Jane Rosenthal. And then over the years, we'd say hello or run into each other at events or this and that. And then The Fighter had come out, and I saw it, and I thought it was just great and wonderful. And then we were talking about stuff, and this happened, just happened, luckily, that he was going to do it, and he wanted me to do it. And when I read I don't know whether I read the book before I read his version or a script that was different than what was actually done, but the book's character was different, and then that script, I think, was different also. And then David went off and wrote it, and we just waited for what he was going to do and so on. But I was committed to the project, and that was it. And then we just did it.
I want to just ask all of the actors if you can shed a little light on what it's like to make a film with David, because from what I understand, it's an unconventional, some unconventional directions in terms of, just from reading your other interviews, the camera is always moving, there may be lines or directions or things that are provided during a take, just all of that. And I wonder, and it really does make things feel, whether it's The Fighter or this, especially in the group scenes, like when Jennifer Lawrence busts in on at towards the end, and we have this situation where everybody's confronting everyone else, and it feels very alive. And I just wonder if you can talk about how that ends up happening on so many David O. Russell films.
There was a basic framework of what the scene was and the dialogue, and then we just kept doing it, and it was really very free-form. The camera was basically handheld, and he was roving around. And sometimes David would yell to one of the actors, "Change the line, say this." And he would give them something, not how to say it, but just a different line to say. And then we started improvising ourselves. And within the context of the character, you pretty much knew the attitude that you had with the other person. And we just started improvising a lot around the basic framework of the scene and the words that were written, and you just saw what came out.
Is that a way that you'd ever worked before, Mr. De Niro?
Well, I've worked every which way. I think I can say that I've worked every which way imaginable. That's what Paul said is exactly what it was, and it gives it an immediacy, a spontaneity, as long as you're going in the direction of what the characters are doing and supposed to be doing, and so it's a terrific way to work, and you don't have time to think or edit, just go with it, and that's the point, and it's a terrific way to work.
I mean, to have Mr. De Niro in the film is a gift beyond words, and he's such a, he's going to hate this. I mean, he's just such, anyway, I'll skip over that. So anyway, so I'll just tell you, he's just, you really make sure you're careful, and, I wouldn't want to give him direction. Very often I would say, what would you like? And then he would sometimes say to me, I would like some direction or not. But I wouldn't want to go there with unless he wanted it. The last thing you want is this guy looking at you the wrong way, is a force of nature. But, there's the scene, for example, but he just so loves the craft. That's why we were all there together. It was like theater. We all loved the craft. So the very first day when him and Paulie are talking, I mean, I could have listened to them talk all day. I could have made a movie about the two of them. And so much great dialogue came out of that, about Benjamin Franklin, and, it's Benjamin Franklin's team, it's not the Cowboys team. And the dynamic between the two of them was just so comfortable and familiar. And then when Bradley walks in, we did it so many different ways. I believe in trying it each different way. Sometimes he attacked him almost physically as soon as he met him. We thought that's really interesting. And then we said we take it down, so maybe it's more interior. But what's good about that is he's then carrying what he did when he attacked him physically. That's like inside him, like he had that experience with his son. They had that experience together. And so even though it's not happening in the new take, it's there in their relationship.
Your son, not only is this film in many ways about him and things that he's gone through, he's actually in the film. He plays one of the kids in the neighborhood who's interested in writing a report about Bradley Cooper's character and what he's going through. What was that like for you, not only directing your son, but directing your son in a film about this issue?
Well, God help him, he wants to be an actor. And I would never encourage anybody, but it's what his passion is, and it's what, it's always helped him, because you get to inhabit a role and express all that emotion, so he's been in all these school plays and all these skits. Ever since he was little, he was always dressing up and being characters, and so that was very helpful to him. So, but I don't want any Hollywood brats. I'm not raising no Hollywood brats, So I said, and he goes to a special boarding school for kids with these issues, and so I said, you got to do really well, across the board. You got with your behavior. There's a behavioral program that it's very structured. These people, they need a strategy, like they say in the movie, and they have to learn their own strategies, like a diabetic would. And then if they do that, they can live. You just have to know when you need to go in the other room to take your insulin, so to speak. Which means you got to get quiet, or you got to make a phone call, or redirect yourself because you're not going in a good direction right now, and that you're going to regret that in about 15 minutes. So before you do regret it, so they have to learn to do that. So that's what they do at this school. So he had to audition. He had to do well at school. He had to do well with his behavior, and he earned the right to come down there. And it was very beautiful because I'm very involved. I'm on the board of that school too, so I've helped that school a lot. And a lot of the kids got to be in the film. So those kids in the Halloween scene are a lot of the kids from the school. And that's a very nurturing experience for them to come and, in a supervised way, leave school and come to this place and be on a set and learn what everybody does on the set and see everybody working. And a film set's a very communal place. It's a very safe place for people. It's nice. So they all got to do that. So he got to do that. And for him to act with Robert De Niro was, a shocking thing because it's a hero of his. And in his no filter life, I'll just tell a quick story. The kid has no filter. Like a lot of Asperger's or people with issues. And Al Pacino was kind enough, through a friend, he said liked Al Pacino, and he said, I'd like to have a small dinner and meet your son, and so at a small dinner we walk in the house, and my son, as we walk in the house, he goes, Dad, do you remember I told you Al Pacino is my favorite? And I thought it was not going to be good. I go, yeah. And he goes, I think maybe Robert De Niro a little bit more. And I had to wrestle him into a corner and say, you don't say that. Just Al Pacino's here, and this is Al Pacino's your guy, and that's why we're. So now he got to be in this thing with Robert De Niro, and Robert De Niro is such a wonderful, amazing actor who put so much of his heart into this role that he doesn't tell you what's going to happen. And he himself doesn't know what's going to happen. That's part of what makes him so magical. And so the first take, when he comes out the door, he shoves Matthew and he knocks him back, and Matthew's laughing hysterically. And I was like, what are you doing? I kind of go, Robert De Niro's attacking you. You can't laugh. Why are you laughing? And and eventually De Niro said, it's okay, it's real. He's 17, I'm a grown man, I have a bloody nose, I'm in my pajamas, and I'm angry. He would laugh. And then he played it beautifully, as a guy, and he played it, he used it. And that was a wonderful learning experience, and it made the film better, to see Bob himself losing it, and then say, why are you laughing? I'm sorry. He hits those 3 points so fast. So that was all, some of what it was like for him.
The pattern of release of the film was we started very small at very few theaters and stayed that way actually for a long time in the fall, and then starting in January went wider and went to more theaters. And the effect the film is having and the reaction in the mental health community and among veterans with PTSD has really been very much the same. I mean, you really have felt it sort of branching out in this organic way. For a while, at first, people were just enjoying the movie as a film, and then gradually we started hearing these stories one by one. The first one that really made an impact with me was at one of the early Q&As we did in New York, and this woman came up to me afterwards, and I could tell she had had a very emotional experience with the film. And she said, you know, my son is bipolar. He's 21 years old. He lives at home with me, and it's almost frightening and painful how much I could relate to how much I saw on the screen, and so many things that happened exactly in my life. But I think that this film has given me a tremendous gift. And I said, what is that? And she said, I realize now that as hard as I was trying, I was only ever seeing my son through my point of view. And having just watched this film through Pat Solitano Jr.'s point of view, I feel like I saw what my son experienced for the first time, and I'm now going to go home and try and see things from his point of view, and I think that will make a big difference.
Bradley, I think one of the oddities about Hollywood is that when you do something really well, you are sort of, in a way, limited, punished by being thought of as, in that box, in that way. And you were so good in several, great comedies over the last few years that I think a segment of Hollywood and of the audience maybe struggle to see you outside of that box. And I just wonder what it meant to you to have somebody like David see you for a role that was quite different than I think anything else you've ever played.
It's a dream to be able to work with a guy like David O. Russell. I mean, growing up wanting to be an actor and seeing movies that inspired me to be an actor, the world that existed with the world of the kinds of worlds that he creates in his movies, which they feel real, they feel like actual people, and that no one's really acting. You can't really conceive of the fact that there's a camera and a crew there on this set. That's the way I experienced films that inspired me to act. So, yeah, I mean, it's a dream to be able to have a guy like that say, would you like to play Pat Solitano?
And we should say, so you were Pat Jr. Now, Pat Sr. was somebody that actors dream of working with. This was the second time that you've worked with Robert De Niro after Limitless, and I just wonder, was the experience first and second time sort of everything it might be imagined to be, and did it help having previously worked with him when you came to work again on this film?
Well, in terms of the expectation, he surpasses any expectation I ever had of him, and I had huge ones. But this man, Robert De Niro, is incredible. I mean, the truth is, I was so scared to do this movie, and I thought that I wasn't right for it, which is ridiculous because I'm from Philadelphia. I'm half Italian, Irish. I love the Eagles. I mean, there's more similarities, and so there's something maybe and probably crazy because I thought there weren't any similarities. Not that Pat's crazy, but and Robert De Niro was already cast to play the father, and then the role opened up, and he really championed me to get the role. And initially I was scared, and he really talked me sort of off the ledge and said, it's going to be okay. And to have Robert De Niro be the guy to tell you that is incredible. And then also, that same guy is going to play. You're going to play his son in the movie, and a lot of the scenes demand a real intimacy and a real vulnerability. And I just felt so safe with him, and I always knew, well, at least those scenes, at least those days, I know I'm going to be safe. But that all went away the minute I had the first day with David, and then I went, oh, wait a second, no, here's the partner. Here's the guy that's going to walk down every road with me. And he does with every single actor. And, Masa, everybody who was there, John and Bruce, we could all attest to, David's commitment in a way that I don't know if other directors do that. There is no video village that he's at. He's there with you all the time, sweating, crying, screaming. Everything that you're doing, he's doing. And it feels very safe when you have somebody like that at the helm.
Jay, David has spoken about the different storylines that are going to eventually come to a head at the dance and collide. Really, was I think the word you used, and how it was exciting to see what that would be like. But for you, having to build to that climax through the editing and juggle these several very different trajectories. Was it unusually challenging? Any special challenges on this film for you?
David's quite different director than any director I had ever seen. When you watch the dailies, for one thing, the camera doesn't stop, so you get full 20-minute runs of the camera, and he is shooting the coverage from one angle and he's shooting it from the other, all within the same take, and resetting and talking to the actors. And for me, I got to know David by listening to him in the dailies. I'd never met him. We had one phone conversation. And so when he came back to Los Angeles, I knew what he was thinking. I knew what he was trying to, what he was getting at. Not that I had all the answers, but I knew what the questions were. And that was, so his style of shooting offered a tool for me I've never had, and it was quite remarkable. It was as if I got to sit on the set and listen.
Danny, this is one of 6 scores that you have churned out this year. I don't know when you ever sleep, but it's pretty amazing, and I just want.
He has 3 more Q&As tonight.
I just wonder, first of all, if you could talk a little bit about the process of just discovering, your own process of discovering what a score, in this case, this score, was going to sound like, just procedurally for you, how that works, and also the integration of a lot of actual songs as a part of this film too. I just wonder what sort of input and thoughts you had about those that pop up.
I mean, I don't barely even have a right to be sitting here. I mean, I probably made the least contribution of anybody you see here.
Untrue.
Untrue.
I was already fully booked for my year, but I got the call, to come and meet David and see a rough cut, and I thought, oh, well, I'm a big fan of his, and then I was told before I saw it, I said romantic comedy, and then I got scared. I said, oh, but I generally feel like I don't know what to do with that genre, but I saw this film and I was just blown away. And I came home and my wife asked me, what was it like? I said, I don't know how to describe it, but the chemistry is amazing. And I can't remember when I've worked on a film recently where it was just pure chemistry. And I said, I don't know how, but I have to work on this film. And so in the end, it was a very simple score, but scores are like mathematical equations. You can end up with an incredibly simple statement of mathematics, but there can be like a blackboard's full of mathematics getting to that point, and this score was kind of like that. It was in the end, a very simple score, but there was a lot of math getting there. But the joy of that math is half of our job is writing music. The other half is really getting inside a director's head, because we have to find something that doesn't exist. And David's head was such an interesting place to be the whole time that he'd come over pretty much every other day for a long time. And I was terrified.
Even after the score was done.
Even after the score was done. And I never knew how he was going to react. And sometimes it was good and sometimes it was bad. And I became Pavlovian at a certain point but I enjoyed hanging out with him so much. So I was terrified of his reaction to that day's music, but I was really happy to have him coming over and hanging out. And so it became this really strange experience, but really unique. And all I knew was that the movie was special, and all I really had to do was put some icing on the cake. And usually I'm called in to put in pounds of icing on a cake, and this just required an elegant, simple bit, and finding that was so interesting. I'm really, really proud to be part of this film, even as small as my contribution was. In terms of the songs, I didn't think about it at all, because as with most films, the songs that you hear early on are often just placeholders, and I actually didn't even know what songs would be in at the end. So I, in all cases, and this not excluded, I pay no attention to the songs behind the curtain, because I don't know what they're going to be. And I just pay attention to the drama that I'm dealing with, and in this case, how to really, really delicately deal with it, which I normally, as everybody here knows my work, I don't get to be delicate very often.
I just want to add something about that. Just one unique element to David O. Russell, which I was, and everybody else was honored to see. He's so, I hope I'm not going to embarrass you, but it's all music. When I think about the rhythm of this movie and the shooting of it, it's all rhythm and music. And what he's saying about how each thing, builds upon itself, it's true. He has this footprint, and he would watch him sort of discover exactly the language cinematically that he wants to do as we're doing the takes. And very often when we would think we were finished with a scene, we'd go, and this would happen all the time, he would just do one more. And that one was this sort of dance that he would direct David Thompson to do as we would go through the whole scene. And it wasn't anybody's coverage, it was one viewpoint of the scene with the camera, and it was often it was used in the movie very often because there was a real fluidity and a musicality to it because it was connected visually with the emotional context, and that was always exciting. That last take was always very, very, very exciting for the actors because you knew that, oh, this is kind of where this is the magic hour, and it happened every day. And that was a real privilege for all of us.
And sometimes on that last take, some wonderful things would happen in the performances. The magic, our movie really is about emotion and people. That's the whole thing that it's about. It's not about anything else but that. So that was everything, capturing that. And the willingness of every actor and everybody on the crew to make that happen was everything. And Robert De Niro crying was never in the script, not asked for, never discussed. And you go, okay, let's do it one more time. Okay, and all of a sudden that happens, and Bradley and I are looking at each other like, "Oh my God," right? And then, right?
Oh yeah.
And then in the editing room for a while, we were scared of it.
I know, that's
and
right.
We didn't put it in. Bradley was very helpful in the editing room. He came to the editing room, as did the producers, and sometimes we said, "How did we have that out of the movie?" When he cried, because it was very personal to him. He has family people he knows who've struggled, and when I met him with the screenplay, he cried, and that's when I knew how personal it was to him. But I never knew he would do it in the picture.
I think the question is just sort of how do you balance retaining all the stuff that you've worked on for so long, so hard, with incorporating things in the moment as they arise.
You have to trust your instincts, and you have to surround yourself with really, really people who are emotionally dialed into what you're doing. And it's like a kettle on the boil. If you had it on a rolling boil for those 4 years, as you get closer, you turn it up and it really starts a full boil, and more things are going to appear to you that are very exciting, that you never imagined, And if you're grounded in what the film is emotionally, you're not looking for that. We weren't looking for that. That, to me, is my worst nightmare as a writer-director, is when you're still looking for it. We weren't looking for it. We knew what it was. So it was just a question of finding it deeper and better in each character, and each location, and each design, and each edit. And that's a wonderful thing, that I experienced with The Fighter and this film. And I hope that makes sense to you. You're sort of, Bob De Niro gives a lot of answers like that. He's asking what's overlapping dialogue and what's, like I said, you write the script 20 times, so it's very specific. So you know what lines really need to be heard, and you want to make sure they're heard. Sometimes you learn, oh, well, that's not as important as I thought it was, or that's more important than I thought it was when you're there on the day. But, it's not like, everybody has a rhythm. If they're present emotionally, they're really talking to each other, so they're not going to talk on top of each other, because they're just being present emotionally. If there's any overlap, it's because it's coming from an emotional place, but they're really listening to each other. Wouldn't you say, Bradley?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well,
So that if you captured that overlap as an audience member, you're following it because you're watching two people having a real conversation, as opposed to sort of talking at each other like lines that they've learned.
I mean, a whole art of this film is to hide all of our artistry. It's not to announce it, which I think in that art, a lot of it can go overlooked. I remember Robert De Niro had that feeling about Mark Wahlberg's performance in The Fighter, which a film that Robert De Niro loved, which is why he wanted to do this. It's these things that are sort of so natural that they're hidden almost, and that would go for everybody up on this stage. Judy's design, which I'm in love with, has these motifs of these things on the wall, like these like vines, these metal vines that people had on their houses. And she does it in the Solitano house and in Julia Stiles' house. Massa made the lighting so amazing in that dance thing that it actually felt special and romantic, but not too much so. He had this whole thing that he did on his own. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Wait, just let me show it to you." And I was like, "I don't know what's going to happen. And he had this whole thing. It was like a live show, like it was on TV, where he was working the board during the dance, in real time. Where now it's going to go blue, now it's going to go white, and it was very exciting. It made it a magical thing, but it still kept it like amateurish, which was wonderful. No, but it was perfect. No, I love it. I think it's perfect to what the movie is, because, and Danny, Danny being such a virtuoso, was willing to do this on a small scale with us, which is the biggest blessing ever. And I want to hang out at his house, because who wouldn't want to hang out at his house? It's like it's the home of all the magical music from every movie Tim Burton ever did and everything. It's just a magical environment. And if you're lucky, you get invited to the water volleyball game. Where you're like in a pool with Gus Van Sant. You're like, how did this happen? And then Danny's spiking the ball in your face. And Jay Cassidy, was really tireless, with the editing of the film, and he was very open. He was not. Nobody up here was an inflexible prima donna, myself included. You have to be not precious, and you have to be organic about it. Jay welcomed a lot of people in his editing room, which included many people up here, and he's happy to have a dialogue about it and still beat you a lot of times. You know what I mean? He'll still, if he's right, he's right. You know what I'm saying? And we would all debate things, and the whole thing gets better in that way. And to make it look like you're capturing life that seems like it's effortless. That's all the work that went into it. So thank you guys for coming out, and thank everybody up here.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.